recording live from the virtual Lucky Number 7 Lounge. This is Dine, Drink Vegas, the podcast by and for everybody stuck at home, wishing they were in the land of neon lights and bad decisions. I'm your host, John, a.k.a. The Baller on a Budget, and you have stumbled across episode 53, Mandalay Bay Pool Day. In addition to our pool review, we're going to bring you the Vegas news that we thought was interesting, and of course that drink of the day, but we can't do any of those things until we introduce the founder of Dine Drink Travel and Dine Drink Vegas himself. Yes, of course I mean the high roller formerly of the High Plains, the king of comps, the leader in the luxury lounge, the Alabama slammer, I mean Bill. Good evening, Bill. How are you, sir?
I am excellent. How the heck are you, John?
I'm doing really good, and I'm super curious how you got on with the drink of the day. So are you ready to dive into beverages?
In just a minute, I am. But first, here's how I got on with the drink of the day. At my workplace today, I attended a meeting that made me dumber. And as a result of attending a meeting that made me dumber, I needed some purifying whiskey juice. So my frame of mind as we get into the drink of the day was that any drink you would put on the run sheet was going to be okay. But yeah, sure, I love the drink of the day. John, why don't you tell our listeners what we have?
So this drink is called the Busted Pipe. Now, let me tell you how I found this drink, first of all. Last night, I was rumbling around my liquor cabinet because I hadn't pre-planned the drink of the day, and Bill and I both live in markets where we don't always have quick access to ingredients, so I was looking for something that I knew Bill had from a previous drink and then to find recipes for. And I came across my bottle of Amaro Nonino, which we used in a cocktail a couple of episodes ago. I knew Bill still had some. And I just very quickly poured together rum and Amaro Nonino, put it on the rocks, and gave it a little citrus zest and went on with my night. And I was Googling away, and I found this recipe that was very similar to what I just randomly poured myself. So this drink is called the Busted Pipe. It is equal parts. They recommend 1.5 ounces. We both know Bill poured a double.
Whoop.
Equal parts, 1.5 ounces of Amaro Nonino and bourbon. You're going to put that into your cocktail stirring glass and stir it with a bunch of ice, then strain it out over one large ice cube in your rocks glass. Or, if you're lazy, build it in your rocks glass and stir in the rocks glass. Either way, and you're going to garnish that with one Luxardo Cherry or whatever cocktail cherry you prefer, and a lemon twist. That is pretty much it. Built in the glass or stirred in your stirring glass. 2 main ingredients, 2 simple garnishes. This is way more Bill's speed. Bill, what do you think?
So 2 different things. One, I absolutely love this drink. This may be one of my favorite drinks that we've made on the show because it tastes fantastic. And listeners, with all the ingredients, okay, the 4 ingredients John just listed, and really 3 plus some cherries. One of the things which is absolutely essential to this drink is that you absolutely need to add the lemon twist. The lemon twist very much changes the composition of the drink. I do love it. I guess my only challenge with this drink is that the Amaro is hard for me to find. Like, I can't find Amaro here in my market in Alabama. I had to drive to Georgia to get Amaro. So, some of the ingredients are a little bit obscure, but the cocktail is super simple to make. I love it. And this will absolutely go in the rotation as long as I can continue to find the Amaro. If I'm going to use the Amaro, I'm trying to decide if I like this better or if I like the Paper Airplane better, which is effectively this drink plus some Campari with slightly different ratios. And the way that I'm going to resolve that tie is by testing and observation. I'm going to make more drinks. But I like it very much. I made mine with Buffalo Trace. John, what ingredients did you use in your drink?
So I used the Maker's Mark cask strength, which I think helped because I will say the Amaro Nonino or Nonino, Nanu, I don't know.
Nanu.
Amaro, I might have had a couple of, so we were going to record over an hour ago, listeners, and Bill had to talk to his wife. And
who is way better looking than John is, and I defend my choice.
Yeah. No, you objectively did the right thing. I don't blame you. But the way I dealt with our rain delay is I drank several of these cocktails. And so now Amaro Nonino is hard to say. I will say different Amaros have different flavors. The Amaro Nonino can have a slightly cough syrupy flavor. I think if you do these equal parts, a stronger bourbon is better. Now, I've met you. I'm willing to bet you fudged the bourbon a bit.
I didn't. I
Do it
actually made this
exactly.
one. No, I made this one
To
totally to
spec.
spec, and I'm not getting
Mark
any
the
of.
day down.
I'm not getting any of the medicinal nature of that. I did not add anything. I made it. I mean, I may have poured a double, but I made it exactly in the right ratios. And it is a phenomenal drink.
Okay. Well, in that case, now I stand corrected because I will say when I did this with rum last night and it was an 80 proof rum, I didn't get any medicinal notes, and that was a 50-50 blend. With this, what are we looking at here? Cast strength with this 114.4 proof maker's mark. It was a little cough syrupy. So now I'm wondering if dilution of the spirit is actually good, because your Buffalo Trace, which I think is 90 proof, might be 80, but I think it's 90. Your lower proof bourbon didn't give you medicine notes, and my barrel proof did.
Yeah.
So maybe this is a case where barrel proof is not the answer. I usually think the stronger the bourbon, the better. I'm going to have to make this with an 80 or 90 proofer now just to see what's what.
So
That's
two
interesting.
things. One, I would tell you if you were wrong. I would tell you were wrong even if I had a basis to go on. It turns out no, there's no medicinal note here, right? Like I am not getting any of that. The second thing is I put a giant ice cube in there. And maybe the reason that I'm not getting any of the medicinal notes is just that the fact that, over time it's watered down, and, that would change the ratios. But no, it is an absolutely phenomenal cocktail, to the point where the next time I try to get Rachel to drink bourbon, which is probably the next time I'm like, sweetheart, John's coming over to the house, then I probably pour her this, right? And it makes it okay.
And I will say, this is the first time I've done this cocktail with the Amaro Nonino. I very frequently will pour myself equal parts of bourbon and Amaro de Angostura. Occasionally, I'll do it with bourbon and Campari. I think bourbon and Amaros and aperitifs mix really well. I probably wouldn't do Aperol. Now, on a future episode, Bill, I did make my wife, while I was playing with my drink, she did not want this drink. I made her a Paloma. I used very cheap tequila, Monte Alban Reposado, but I added a little bit of Aperol to add a little sophistication to it.
Oh.
And I don't know what to name this thing, but an Aperol Paloma, that's going to be a drink of the day in a future episode. Just spoiler.
A, I am fine with that drink today. And B, I have met your wife. She is almost as good looking as I am, and I would not serve her cheap tequila. She has to go home to your ugly ass, and I think she deserves good tequila.
We do have good tequilas on hand, and when she sips Lalo. That is her tequila of choice for sipping. It turns out for mixing, she wants to save a few bucks. Usually we'll go with a mid-range Reposado. I picked a bottle of Monte Alban, which is ridiculously cheap. Let me caveat, listeners, I'm not saying it's great tequila. I'm saying if you're on a budget and your choices are Monte Alban, Jose Cuervo, or Pepe Lopez, get the damn Monte Alban, because for its
100%.
price point, it's actually a good tequila. Normally I buy their mezcal, which that's a whole Texas chili parlor, Mad Dog Margarita. We'll get to that later. I think we've done it before, but we'll do it again because, by God, Texas. Usually when I buy Monte Alban, it's the mezcal. The tequila, now the Blanco is a little rough. The Reposado, for the price, isn't bad. I didn't say it was great tequila. Don't at me, tequila snobs. Don't at me, additive-free tequila people. But for the price, anyway, we're talking about bourbon. Why am I talking about tequila? Oh, yeah, I was on hold.
Because we've both been drinking for an hour and a half?
All right. Speaking of drinking for hours on end, Bill, we're going to jump right into our main story. We had the opportunity last Saturday to get a pool cabana at the Mandalay Bay complex. We rented ourselves a cabana in the wet deck. The wet deck is exclusive for W Hotel guests. It has its own little side pool. It's a nice little area, but you are very close to both the wave pool and the lazy river. Very short walk. Bill, let's jump into that experience overall. How would you rate our pool day? What did you recommend? What would you recommend about it, and what would your caveats be?
So, John, I'm going to say something I've never said on this podcast before. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
So, John, and it hurts me to say this, but it's just a true thing, and true things are true. You were right, and I was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, a pool day is a lovely thing, and so this wasn't one where we disagreed. Where we disagreed was, is a pool day an appropriate use of a guy's trip? The wet deck pool is absolutely the way to go. And the reason the wet deck pool is the way to go is if you want the access to all of the stuff the Mandalay Bay pool has, you're right there, right? Like, it's not hard. But if you want it to be a little quieter for a while, you can. And we had a great shaded cabana. We had a great TV. I could watch me lose every sports bet I had placed all weekend long.
And you did. You lost all of them. You had a tremendous run.
No, I picked Tennessee to cover, and I won that one, and then I lost all the other ones. And Rachel, when you listen to this, I did in fact lose almost $4 on those bets. But other than that, like, it was a great day. I guess the caveat, the problem is our server was phenomenal, and our server was, John, I'm going to speak slowly so you understand me, better looking than you are.
By a lot, by a wide margin.
It really wasn't close.
No.
The only challenge was that she was serving a really large section of the pool, which meant that sometimes the drinks were a little bit slow in coming. And this was on Labor Day weekend, so, it was a time when they should have been staffed up, but she had a lovely personality and was not terrible to look at. The drinks actually weren't terribly priced. Like, I just paid off that bar bill, and it wasn't a cheap day, but it was fine. Also, somehow I wound up paying the bar bill for the group, but fine. Because it was totally reasonable. The drinks were actually pretty good. The one tip that I want to give our listeners is, so I don't remember what drinks cost, but it was something on the order of, if you want a mixed drink, it would have been around $20. If you wanted a triple, it was, and a mixed drink was like 12 ounces, and what they called a triple was something like 32 ounces. And a triple really did have 3 shots of liquor as opposed to the 1 shot of liquor for the single. All right, here's the challenge. So the triple was $32 rather than the 20-ish bucks for the single. However, they would sell you a second shot of alcohol on the single for an additional $6. So if what you're trying to do is power through your pool day, order the single, you get less of the mixer, pay the extra $6 for an extra shot, and that's just whatever. You don't feel as gross for having drunk as much of these sugary syrup. That would be my caveat. How about you, John? Like, what was your take on that day?
So I will say, like, I agree with everything you just said. One of the ways to combat slow service when they're more busy than they expected. And, we've talked about the slowdown in Vegas. Apparently, Memorial Day weekend was immune. All the people that were avoiding Vegas went like, nah, we're coming this weekend. So it was very busy. And I don't think they had staffed because I think they were expecting a more down weekend than they actually got. The place was packed. If service is slow, that is a really good time to do the bucket of beers and seltzers because that gives you a little bit of time in there. And we did that. We had a bucket and we would order mixed drinks. But if it took a while for your mixed drink to show up, you could grab a bucket. The other thing I'm going to say is this. The cabana came with 2 inner tubes. Now, there were 4 of us, but it turns out that never more than 2 of us wanted to be in the lazy river at a time. So the 2 inner tubes were fine. If you don't rent a cabana, or if you know that the 2 inner tubes that come with the cabana are not enough, they were charging 50 decimal dot $50, a portrait of Ulysses S. Grant to buy a damn inner tube.
Oh,
So
wow.
listeners, if you're not going to rent a cabana, or you need more than the 2 inner tubes that come with the cabana, buy you some inner tubes cheap. Go to your local sporting goods store. Bill and I are in the South, so that means Academy. Go to Dick's, go to whatever you got. Get on Amazon. Now, I brought an extra inner tube that we never needed to inflate. They do have a free inflation station if you bring your own inner tube. Cannot be wider than 48 inches, so no triple XL big back inner tubes. But if you're not doing the cabana, or a cabana doesn't have enough tubes for you, you're going to squeeze 8 people into a cabana. Buy your own inner tube. That $50 an inner tube, you don't want to do that. Right? Turns out we didn't need my inner tube, so I now have a spare still in the packaging for future trips to Vegas. But I would say that. I'll also say this. The cabana was not cheap. And we talked about this when we reversed roles. I'm glad we got the cabana. If I could not have afforded my share of the $725 for a cabana that weekend on our property, I would have rather gotten a cabana at the Plaza than done Mandalay without the cabana. Listeners, I'm going to stand my ground on that.
So,
if you can't afford the cabana at the pool you're staying at, get in an Uber and go to a cheaper pool. You want the damn cabana.
So, listeners, if you've listened to our podcast for a while, you will know I will argue with John if I have any opportunity to do so, or if I simply think it will be funny. But John is just objectively correct here. If you're going to have a pool day in Vegas, for the love of all that's good and holy, for the love of bacon, don't try to save a little bit of money and get a chair in a crowded area for what's going to be fundamentally a different experience and probably cost more than the cabana at a cheaper hotel. Get a cabana because you're going to want the shade, you're going to want the TV, you're going to want the slightly higher level of service. Yeah, 100%, John, you're correct. You want the cabana as part of the pool day. It's just true things are true.
Especially if you are remotely a sports fan, if you watch any sports ball at all, and you bet any sports in Vegas, let me tell you, I would have way rather be in my pool cabana checking on my bets than sitting in the sports book.
Well, for one thing,
it's a better thing.
We had a place to charge our phones. We had some free waters. We had some shade. We got to see our buddy Mike, who may quite possibly be the whitest person alive, sunning himself, which
translucent like an onion.
I didn't take any pictures because that would have been disrespectful of the group we were in, but those pictures would have made me a lot of money. Right. Like, it would have been a weird kink. It would have been a really niche side of the internet, but I'm convinced that niche side exists.
Do you think there's a bunch of people out there asking AI to make pictures of Colonel Sanders sunbathing?
You know what?
I'm just.
It's probably a thing.
Mike, if you're listening, I love you, brother. I'm not wrong.
No.
I mean, look, Zero and I both look like off-season Santa out there. I mean,
I also love the fact that I looked like I was in fairly good shape for the crowd around the pool. Yeah. And listeners, we're never going to show you my picture because we don't like you enough. I am not in good shape. I just looked like I was in fairly good shape for the crowd around the pool.
Yeah, we look exactly like we sounded. I will say, part of me was hoping that the day bed in front of us would be rented out by, some really nice looking sorority sisters getting ready for their senior year at wherever they go to school and party. That's not who had the day bed in front of us.
Oh, dear Lord, no.
I will say to the ladies who were sitting in front of us, Good on you for being body positive, because I wouldn't have made those swimsuit choices in your physique. But bless you, you had confidence, you had swagger. You made it work, ladies. You made it work. Also, I'm
Sweet.
really glad I didn't have my sunglasses. I didn't have my prescription glasses on. All right.
Uh, Probably
On
all for
that
the
note,
best.
Bill, why don't you take us to the news before I get myself canceled?
I will never cancel you, John, because canceling you means canceling me. But
Right?
Scott at Vital Vegas, because listeners, if this is your first time at our podcast, welcome. And if it is your 30th or 40th time at our podcast, you already knew that that's where we start our news of the day, although it's not where we end it. Scott at Vital Vegas reported that the foundation room at Mandalay Bay is temporarily closed for a remodel. There is no opening date available, but rumors say as long as 11 months as possible. And John, I am sad about this because me and my buddy Ryan went up to the foundation room in May, and it's a pretty space. They've got great drinks. The food's not great, but they've got great drinks, and the views of Vegas from up there are absolutely commanding. Have you ever been up to the foundation room, John?
I haven't. It's on my list. And I will say, I really want to get up there now because I had my first experience with Skyfall, which is on the other side of the property in the W Tower instead of in the Mandalay Tower.
Were you
And the
actually
view was
with us for
absolutely
that?
gorgeous. I was for a little bit. So, listeners, I'll be honest. After what happened with Market 360 Vegas, I finally told you guys about losing my daughter back in January under very similar circumstances. I didn't realize I'd been over functioning the way I had. So my Friday night in Vegas was not a good night. All of my anxiety and trauma just sort of came out, and I kind of dipped on the boys and went back to my room. I was back in my room by 7 o'clock. Now, by Saturday morning, my mind was right and I had a great trip, but I'm not going to lie. I sort of had a little freak out meltdown moment being that far away from my other children and my wife, because it turns out when you lose a child, you become very codependent and overprotective. And my children have been like, Dad, back up off of us. You're hovering too much. I didn't realize how clingy and overprotective I was until I was thousands of miles away. So
Yeah.
I needed that Vegas trip for mental health. Unfortunately, Skyfall, we got up there, and that's pretty much when I broke. And I had to go back to my room and kind of hit the psychological reset button. But I will say this about Skyfall. I did notice before I had my little panic attack, it does look a little dated up there. And I would not be surprised. Now, Bill and I don't know anything. We are not Scott from Vital Vegas. We don't have inside information. We don't live in Las Vegas. We don't have friends in the industry. I would not be surprised if after they finish this remodel at the foundation room, that I hope is much faster than 11 months. I kind of think maybe Skyfall needs a refresh because it did seem a little dated up there. It was nice. The view's gorgeous. But it looked a little bit like, like a Star Trek set from one of the 90s shows, like the Bridge of the Enterprise, like very 90s futuristic looking. Am I wrong, Bill?
Guess I see things differently, but listeners, for those of you who are new to the podcast, John is fundamentally an extroverted person. He draws his energy from other people. I am fundamentally an introverted person. Like other people, need them in my life. I draw my energy from quiet time. So, John, I don't know if I've told you this story before, but Skyfall is the first bar where I ever talked to the bartender just because I felt like chatting. And it wasn't on this trip, right? Like it was years ago. But I guess Skyfall has a special place in my heart where I'm not able to objectively evaluate it.
Okay, that's fair. And don't get me wrong. Lovely space, and the view is just breathtaking. And my understanding, now you've had both views. They're somewhat similar. It's a different angle. But you're on the south end of the strip looking north, right? Am I wrong
Right.
about that? Would you say the views are fairly similar?
You are absolutely correct there.
So you're there for the view first and foremost. And I will say I did get to enjoy the view for a little bit. before I kind of went into my little mental health moment. And I did Friday night. I missed out on atomic golf and all of that because I went back to my room and I had a little mental health moment. And listeners, that's just a thing that happens. By the way, if me talking about having a mental health moment makes you uncomfortable, no offense, please don't give up on the podcast. I just want to suggest maybe that's an opportunity to do some self-work. I am a redneck through and through, but if you grew up on the John Wayne, Hank Hill program of like feelings aren't allowed, Bobby, if you weren't my son, I'd hug you. If you grew up that way,
Yeah.
it's okay to work on some feelings. It's okay to have a little emotional depth. Mine got the best of me. So I am sorry I didn't get to do Atomic Golf that night. In a later episode, I want to hear your review of Atomic Golf so that I know whether or not that's a thing I need to go back and do again. But yeah, I did enjoy that view, and I hope that Foundation Room comes back strong. I want to go check it out when it opens. And then I do kind of hope they refresh Skyfall a little bit. Don't change what people love about it, but I will say the vibe's a little dated.
That is fair.
Just an observation.
So, John, what else do we have in the news?
So Scott also shared that Caesars Entertainment was delisted by the S&P 500, which if you're no longer on the Standard & Poor's 500, that is a sign that corporate revenues are dipping and that other companies and other industries are doing better than you. And that's sort of a sign that maybe things in Las Vegas and other travel destinations aren't doing swimmingly well in the year of our Lord 2025.
So, John,
so Bill, does that surprise you, or did you kind of expect this with the financial news coming out of Vegas?
So I kind of expected it, and I'm going to actually break our protocol. I'm going to read the next news story because I think it tracks really well with the story you just told, because also on X, Scott and some others.
It's almost like I put them on the run sheet that way on purpose.
You planned it on purpose, and we have been drinking for way too long to have thought through this, but it makes sense. So also on
I was sober when I did this.
I am not right now. So also on X, Scott and others have been sharing there are some new deals being offered by Vegas venues to combat declining numbers, including things like a $2 ice cream treat at the MGM Grand Pool, or $20 buckets of beer at Westgate, or $6 beers at Carnival Court, or an $18 taco plate at that bougie Mexican joint of Mayo at Cosmo. You can follow the deals at Make Vegas a Value, hashtag Make Vegas a Value again. But I think, John, that really speaks to the story you just read. Vegas has been charging so much for so many things for so long, and fees that have gotten obscene, that's why their revenues are down. Does that make sense to you, John?
It absolutely does. And you and I have been talking about this, and not just us. It's not like we're the Vegas savants. Look, everybody with a podcast, a vlog, a blog, a Twitter feed has been saying the same thing for roughly a year and a half now. After the pandemic, people had more money than sense and a pent-up demand, and Vegas could get away with charging whatever they wanted for anything they wanted because people were going to spend it. Those days are over.
Yeah.
The economy's not where it was. People don't have excess income the way they did a couple of years ago, and Vegas has got to catch up to the reality that the bread and butter of Vegas is the middle class. You need stuff for the high-end whale. I get it. And ordinary people want to occasionally spend and have that high roller experience, right? But the heart and soul of Vegas is the middle-class traveler. They got to price accordingly. They've got to price accordingly. And I think it's good to see that nature is healing. Speaking of good deals, according to the Las Vegas Review-Journal, which, Bill, you may not know this, in a story they stole that I'm pretty sure Scott broke first, because I think Scott was literally sitting with Derek Stevens at the Golden Gate when this announcement dropped, because I was on Twitter watching it jealously because I wasn't in Vegas. Starting September 19th, all drinks at the Center Bar at Golden Gate, also known as Bar Prohibition, also known as the place with the really hot chick who knows whiskey better than I do, and I know my whiskey, will be free from 6 to 7 p.m. every single night. This comes immediately on the heels of a property removing all the physical table games, but you can go play your bubble craps, your slot machines, your electronic games, and get you a real good cocktail because they know what they're doing for the happiest of happy hours.
So, John, If you had a suite at the Golden Gate, would you have to leave the poop and pour to come down and get your free cocktail?
Indeed, you have to come downstairs. And I will say that I'm still lobbying for the next guys trip, either the Rio or downtown. And if we do downtown, I'm staying at the Golden Gate. I'm
So
getting me a suite at the Golden Gate
fair. So
and
I
shooting a video while I'm sober. Because listeners, if you want to see how not to make a YouTube hotel room review, go look up my Golden Gate suite review on YouTube. It is how not to make a hotel review.
it was
It's
not
bad.
it was not the very best thing you have ever done over the course of your lifetime. And for one thing, this will absolutely get me back downtown. Like, this might be enough to make me want to make another trip downtown. What I'm questioning is how long this deal lasts. Because if you're offering a free drink, and I'm sure they're just well drinks, but if you're offering a free cocktail to anybody who shows up just because they say please, gosh, you've got to be anticipating generating some revenue from that. And I don't know how they're anticipating generating revenue from that.
Yeah.
So cool. I would love to
And I
go
will say,
downtown and
too,
do this. I don't know how they make
unless they're
money.
going to change it up for this special, the well at Derek Stevens Properties is either Evan Williams or Jack Daniels. I can't remember. It might be Jim Beam White Label, but it's the well at these locations is not a bad liquor, is what I'm saying. It's not Kentucky Deluxe, right? It's not McCormick vodka.
Yeah, no, that's a really exceptional offer. So, folks, the Golden Gate when still had table games when we were there a week ago, or by the time you listen to this, 2 weeks ago. My favorite blackjack dealer in Las Vegas was Bruce, who I saw right before the Dancing Girls came on. I may have tipped him a lot of money. Like, I loved gambling there. And John and I disagree on this. I think that losing the table games is absolutely a net negative for the property. But I'm not going to lie. If I get a free cocktail, yeah, I'll go back into the Golden Gate and see what you have to offer.
The only reason I disagree with you, Bill, is that the Golden Gate essentially caters to a more budget clientele than Circa. And I think moving the table play over to Circa lets them charge minimums that allow them to cover their labor. The reality is, cheap table games in an era of high labor costs are going to be unsustainable. And I want the dealers to get paid well,
I
right?
do too.
But that means you got to have higher table minimums. And having stayed at the Golden Gate, yes, during peak hours, the tables are full. The difference between Circa and Golden Gate is Circa's tables are busy at 1 o'clock on a Tuesday. The Golden Gates are not. So
Fair.
I do think that this is the right move for them. If Circa wasn't a 90-second walk across the way, it would be a mistake. But considering how close Derek Stevens' other property is, I know you and I disagree. I think he made a smart business decision. And I think the electronic games will let them offer table minimums that the kind of people who tend to stay at the Golden Gate can afford.
So I also want to give credit to Mr. Stevens for one last thing. So when I talked to, like, I've gambled with Bruce a half a dozen times. I intentionally seek him out because he's a fun dealer. He doesn't make me hate my life. And because the table rules at Golden Gate have always been favorable. But to give credit to Mr. Stevenson, Bruce was not sad because he was about to lose his job. He was not. He was just going to walk those 90 seconds and go deal. Like, as I talked to the man, he was going to go deal at Circa. So I want to give credit to Derek Stevens for taking care of his people. And when he ripped out those table games, which I still don't like the choice, nobody lost their job. And good on him.
Which is phenomenal. And honestly, Bruce will probably make more in tips across the way.
Probably. Well,
I'm still campaigning for dancing slot attendants because that's the worst part is imagining the Golden Gate without the dancers.
That is sad. Well, in other news, Fox News reported on September 9th that Las Vegas buffets are a, quote, dying breed, end quote, and they are dying in favor of food halls. Several other outlets have run with the same story. But, John, that just doesn't track with what I saw at the Palm. So me and our buddy Mike and our buddy Zero got there a night before you did. on Friday, a couple of hours before you landed, we went. You may have been in the air at the time we went there, but we went to the Palms Buffet, and we got there, and it was probably a half hour in line. By the time we left, the line had grown longer. It was pretty obviously 45 minutes or an hour. So on the one hand, I get it. There's a preference amongst many people for the food hall rather than the buffet. I call BS on the argument that buffets are a dying breed because at the Palms, which is not one of the premier buffets in Las Vegas, there was at 11 o'clock on a Friday morning, there was an hour-long line to get in. So, John, what do you think about do you think that buffets are a dying breed in Vegas?
No, I do think that buffets will not be as common as they once were. So there's a thing that we struggle with in American communication in 2025 called nuance. It's the same thing
Ah,
with the hashtag Vegas is dead. Vegas isn't dead. Visitor traffic to Vegas is down. That's two different things. Buffets are not dead. Demand for buffets is down. There's enough demand to sustain a lot of buffets, just not quite so many as there used to be. Now, personally, my take on buffets is if I'm going to eat a buffet, I want it to be a really high-end dining experience, and I'm willing to drop the $100 on the Win or the Bacchanal to have an elite experience. But if I'm not going to get an elite experience, I'd rather go to a food hall because I don't want to fill my belly with as much lackluster food as I can. I like the Proper Eats food hall at Aria because I can order an appetizer in one cuisine, an entree in another, and a dessert in another, and I can experience three different cuisines in a very easy format for roughly the cost of a buffet, but not fill my stomach with a bunch of plates that weren't really that good, but I was trying to get my money's worth. I do think that the rise of the food courts is a good thing, but I don't think all the buffets will or should go away. I think there's room in this ecosystem for both.
so to your point that buffets are less popular than they used to be, fine. Here's what I observed though, based on how long that line was at a not particularly peak time, and this was not one of the top three buffets in Vegas, it looks to me like too many buffets have closed. There is absolutely a demand for this because while you and I are older than the 20 something year olds that Vegas has marketed to, it turns out we are, as a technical matter, not dead yet and still have plenty of
No.
money for a buffet.
Yes.
That line was super long. I think too many buffets have been closed, and I think there is absolutely money to be made by opening up another one or two or three high end buffets somewhere in Las Vegas. And for the love of bacon, I hope one of those high end buffets will eventually be in downtown.
Yeah, I mean, because the one downtown buffet is not a great buffet. It is better than a Golden
No.
Corral, and it has some unique
Eh.
Hawaiian dishes, and breakfast is good. But the Main Street Casino's Garden Buffet is just okay. Beautiful space, okay-ish food. I will say the baked goods are pretty good, and I'm diabetic, so I'm picky when I let myself eat that crap. Their baker is good. Yeah, I agree with you. The market is probably overcorrected on buffets. There's probably room for a couple of buffets to come back. I will say it may not be too, like, we may have some places look at, instead of opening as a buffet, you may see some restaurants offer some buffet or all you can eat experiences. So, for instance, to your point, what if more places did, and we'll do a whole main story on brunch at Border Grill. What if a few more places on the strip started offering what Border Grill does on the weekends in terms of their all you can eat brunch, where it's technically not a buffet, it's basically small plates off the menu brought to you fresh, but you do get a variety of foods in an all you can eat experience.
So I would at least pay attention to that. But again, I don't know. I guess I'm old enough. I still like the buffet form factor. Well, John, what else
I
do we
do
have going
too on
on
the
in
right
the
occasion.
news?
Well, I'm not going to let that go just yet. By the way, Bill, one thing we didn't cover, and then I'll go to the next story. if you didn't catch this, Travel Ruby actually did a video on it. And I know you usually watch Ruby's videos. Guy Fieri's Flavor Town has a $20 all-you-can-eat brunch certain days of the week. So
Cool.
I'll just throw that out there. All right. Anyway, let's see. Where are we? Okay. According to KLAS News 8, a tourist run a jackpot of almost $1 million, 937,040 to be specific, at the link. What do you think? What do you do if you win that kind of money and you're on a trip like the one we took last week, Bill? What's the first thing you're doing with that jackpot?
So I think what the law requires, like law, moral obligation, a sense of decency requires, is if I win $1 million, I kind of have to buy drinks for the rest of the group for the rest of that weekend, right? Like,
yeah, without a doubt, yeah.
Cool.
Drinks are a must.
Also,
you got to tip the slot attendant, right?
Probably should, but if she's pissed off with me, I can live with it. Also, and Rachel, if you're listening to this, I love you, and I've always told you about the complete truth about everything ever, freaking ever. I probably don't call my wife and tell her I've won $1 million till I know how much of it I have left when I'm going home.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to take a tax hit. You got to plan for that. You ought to tip the slot attendant, like maybe $1,000.
Yeah, sure, something. I don't know that that's a percentage tip, though.
Yeah, no, it's not a percentage tip. And I know Scott at Vital Vegas will yell at us, but it's our fantasy money. We can do whatever we want with it. We're probably never going to win it anyway. Yeah, I do think, Bill, and I'm surprised this doesn't come out of your mouth, I'm booking a Fountain View table at Le Cirque that night and taking my friends to Le Cirque.
I was actually just getting ready to say that. Like, I call Martin immediately.
Martin my faith in you is restored.
No, Martin is my waiter at Le Cirque. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, of course I have my waiter's business card, and we all go drinking and eating at Le Cirque that night, and of course we order the cognac after dinner because I got $1 million. Yes. Why not?
Yeah, I think we order the bottle just to put it on the table.
Yeah, why not? Well, in other news,
I think so.
Yeah, no, in other news, according to SF Gate, which I'm assuming stands for San Francisco Gate, but whatever, sfgate.com, Lake Mead water levels are going to hit their lowest level ever over the next 2 years. And over the same time frame, Lake Powell water levels may drop so low as to impact electricity generation. So, listeners, if you are a longtime listener of the podcast, first, thank you. We really appreciate you coming along for this ride with us. And second, if you're in Las Vegas, y'all, you're in the middle of the desert. There is no scenario in which whatever your conception of eternity is intended millions of people to live there. There is not the water for it. Please be careful with the water you're using because the water levels in Lake Mead are dropping to the point where it's a real problem. And I don't even apologize. We will absolutely continue to report on this story here. What I hope is it is a wet winter in the mountains that feed into the Colorado River and eventually into Lakes Powell and Mead. That's just not the situation right now. John, do you pay any attention to that sort of stuff when you go to Las Vegas?
I do, but it depresses me. Seeing the bathroom ring on Lake Mead drop when you fly over, because usually when you're flying from far west Texas, you get a nice view coming in. It is depressing and it's concerning. It is worth noting that Las Vegas is not the biggest draw on that water. It's farmers in Southern California, oddly enough. The federal government is going to have to think of a solution to this. I have no idea what that looks like, and I don't think this is the forum for us to discuss that, although, Bill, you have some expertise in that regard. So maybe we make that a feature story down the road, but for now I'll just say I'm going to pray for snow this winter, and if that doesn't work, I hope smarter people than me try to figure out some way to help our favorite tourist destination with their water situation. And I know some people could get mad at you for what you just said and be like, it's not the locals, it's the tourists. And all I can say to that is if it wasn't for the tourists, there wouldn't be any locals. So We're in this crap boat together, folks, and we all need to be rooting for that water level to go up, whether you're a local or a tourist, because you cannot have all the fun in Sin City without some water to shower it off with.
100%.
All right, moving on to a happier story. We reported previously that the Eagles are extending their residency at the Sphere, according to the New York Post. They have now added 4 dates in 2026. Bill, is this a show you would care to catch? I can enunciate.
We've both been working on this podcast for like 3 hours now for what is presently like 45 minutes of broadcasting. And yeah, absolutely it is. I've seen the Sphere from the outside. I want to see it again. And I'm going to go ahead and read our next news story because I think these are worth talking together. But in other Sphere news, KLAS 8 News reports that the Wizard of Oz, like that story, which we've talked about before, is admitting 4,000 or 5,000 people 2 or 3 times a day, and is taking in up to $2 million a day. So the Sphere is clearly a hugely popular destination. So to your question, John, yeah, I would go see the Eagles. I don't know that I would pay a whole ton of money to see the Wizard of Oz. But it seems to me like the folks who built the Sphere may have actually hit on something. John, have you ever actually been out there to the Sphere?
Yeah, my buddy Josh and I and our buddy Court went over to see Postcards from Earth. Dude, I'm just telling you right now, the Sphere is worth the money to get in there, whatever they're showing, right? I don't care. I will watch Ishtar at the Sphere. I will watch the worst movie ever. I don't care. It is a phenomenal experience. I would love to see The Wizard of Oz. I would love to catch a concert there. I'm hoping they do something like Pink Floyd's The Wall. Heck, do Rocky Horror. Let's see a 40-foot tall Dr. Frankenfurter. I don't care. The Sphere is a ton of fun. It's a great experience, and I'm glad it's there. And yeah, Bill, at some point, when you're in town and there's something that, even if it only partially piques your interest, if you think it might be worth your time, go. If we're in town together, I will go with you. Money well spent. It's a heck of an experience.
All right. Well, that absolutely sounds like something I would rather see the Eagles than the Wizard of Oz, but I very much want to see the space.
Yeah, it really is good. Maybe they could do some Star Trek, since that last story was brought to us by Kalis. Anyway, sorry, KLAS. What? Anyway, all the Star Trek nerds that listen to us are laughing. Everybody else is going, "What is wrong with these nerds?" I blame it on the Amaro Nonino that I cannot say, and it's making my speech difficult. So I think it's probably time, Bill, that we go ahead and shut this episode down. But we did just get back from Las Vegas. So how about a YouTube channel update from the founder of Dine Drink Vegas?
So, folks, at our YouTube channel, Dine Drink Vegas, we bring you short and focused videos which give you the information that you need to plan your next trip. They're usually 5 or 10 minute videos which tell you things like, what is it like to stay in this particular hotel room or eat at this particular restaurant? You can also find us on Dine Drink Vegas Shorts for short-form content, including things like what are the gambling rules at a specific restaurant. And you can find us on Dine Drink Travel for things like air travel, including the lounges at the Las Vegas airport. And eventually, when John and I get around to it, we will start including our drinks of the day there. You can also find us on social media at Dine Drink Travel on X, Instagram, Facebook, and I'm sure some other places, and on Blue Sky at Dine Drink Bill. I spend a lot of time on X, though, because I can talk to my friend John. John, where can they find you on X?
On X, I am at Dine Drink John. I'm happy to talk to you about Las Vegas, about adult beverages, about why the Dallas Cowboys will certainly break my heart, about why TCU football got to embarrass Bill Belichick, and now you can talk to me about why Mark Cuban should buy the A's and save baseball in Las Vegas. We're so glad you took the time to listen to this episode. If you have a friend planning a trip to Vegas who could benefit from our travel tips, or a mortal enemy that hates listening to old fat white Southern guys talk, either way, share our podcast with them. You'll be helping us build an audience so we can keep bringing you all of the great Las Vegas content that we can steal from Scott at Vital Vegas and other people. And we thank you again for listening. Until the next episode, happy travels.